The first time my daughter called another woman Mom, I forgot how to breathe. We were standing in the parking lot behind Chuck E. Cheese, of all places. Kids running around with pink faces, somebody's balloon popping, the faint smell of burnt pizza clinging to my clothes. My daughter, Maya, had cake on her cheeks and a unicorn crown on her head. It was her 7th birthday. I had just reached out my arms to hug her goodbye when she turned, saw the woman standing beside my husband, and shrieked, "Mom, look what Daddy got me." She ran straight past me, right past my open arms, right past the woman who had carried her for 9 swollen, tear-filled months. She jumped onto that other woman like she'd been waiting for her all day, like she was the one who'd labored and prayed and stayed up with fevers. My husband, James, stood there watching, not shocked, not confused, just watching. He didn't correct her. He didn't say, "No, baby, that's not Mom, that's Miss So-and-so." He looked at me over Maya's head and swallowed, hard. And in that tiny pause, with the sound of children screaming over arcade games behind us, something in my chest tore in a way I can't fully explain. But my story doesn't start in that parking lot. It starts in a much smaller moment, years earlier, when I still believed there were certain lines no husband, no father, no grandmother would ever cross. My name is Angela. I'm 39 years old, a medical assistant at a busy clinic, and I used to think I understood what family loyalty looked like. I grew up in a house where my mother worked 2 jobs, my father fixed everything that broke, and we all crowded around the same small table at night with whatever food there was. We didn't always like each other, but we always chose each other. That was my blueprint. By the time I met James, I had a decent life on paper. I had my own small apartment, a reliable car, and a cat named Pepper who thought she paid the rent. I wasn't desperate for a man to save me. I was just lonely in a way my paycheck and my friends couldn't quite fill. James came into my life through my cousin's husband. They worked at the same auto shop. He was 31, tall, with grease under his nails no matter how much he washed his hands, and a smile that made his whole face crease. Our first date was at a diner with sticky menus and the best fries I'd ever had. "You seem like the type that holds everything together," he'd said, watching me stir my coffee. "Somebody ever do that for you?" I remember laughing. "I do it for myself," I answered, "but I wouldn't mind having some help." He had that help energy in the beginning, opened my car door, brought me lunch on my shifts, called to ask if I'd eaten. It wasn't fancy, but it was consistent. Consistency felt like love to me. He came from a different world than I did. His mother, Diane, was a loud, sharp-tongued woman who worked nights at a warehouse and spent her days on Facebook and on the phone. She had James at 19, his father gone by 21. "My son is my whole world," she told me the first time we met, staring me down over her bifocals. "I raised him by myself. Don't you come between us." I thought she was joking. I laughed politely. James squeezed my hand under the table. "Ma, chill," he'd said. "Ain't nobody trying to take me from you." Diane liked me at first, or at least she pretended to. I had a solid job, no kids from before, and I called her Ms. Diane with respect. She'd pull me aside after Sunday dinners, press Tupperware into my hands, and say things like, "You seem good for my boy." She'd also say, "Y'all better give me at least 2 grandbabies before my knees give out." We got married when I was 32 and he was 34. Small church, cheap cake, lots of dancing. Diane wore a bright purple dress and cried louder than my own mother. When we lit the unity candle, she held her phone up the whole time, recording, whispering, "That's my baby. Look at my baby." Our early years were not perfect, but they were ours. We rented a little duplex on the east side, thin walls, leaky sink, neighbors who argued loud enough to share. We both worked, me at the clinic, him at the shop. We shared bills, took turns cooking, argued over whose turn it was to take the trash out. A year into the marriage, I got pregnant. We weren't trying, but we weren't not trying either. When the test turned positive, I sat on the edge of the tub, shaking, laughing, and crying at the same time. James lifted me off the floor, spinning me carefully in the tiny bathroom. Diane, though, she acted like she'd just won the lottery. "You hear that, Facebook?" she announced in a shaky live video, not even asking if we wanted it public. "My son made me a grandma. That's right, my baby having a baby." Pregnancy was not kind to me. I threw up until my ribs hurt. My ankles swelled. My mood swung between weepy and angry in ways that scared even me. I worked as long as I could, then collapsed into maternity leave like it was a finish line. Diane was there, I'll give her that. She came over with casseroles and ginger tea. She washed dishes without asking. She also took small, biting jabs. "You better hope this baby looks like my side," she'd say, rubbing my belly. "We got the good hair." Or, "Don't worry, if you can't handle it, Grandma will take over. I did it once, I can do it again." The night Maya was born, after 12 hours of labor and 3 of pushing, they placed this wrinkly, squirming, perfect little girl on my chest. Everything else blurred. "Hi," I whispered, sobbing and laughing. "Hi, baby, I'm your mommy." James cried. Diane barged into the room before the nurse could stop her, phone out, filming. "Look at my grandbaby," she howled. "Like a little chocolate doll, my son did that." I lay there, exhausted, stitches pulling, still bleeding, and watched her zoom in on my child's face like I was just a prop in the background. Still, when she took Maya so I could sleep, when she sang those off-key lullabies, I was grateful. Grateful for hands that weren't mine. Grateful for someone who loved my baby almost as fiercely as I did. That's how it was for the first couple of years. Complicated gratitude. Postpartum hit me like a truck, dark thoughts, long nights, a body that didn't feel like home. James picked up extra shifts to make up for my reduced hours. Diane came over to help and slowly slid from guest to fixture. She fed Maya. She watched cartoons with her. She rearranged my kitchen without asking. She also said things like, "She don't like you to hold her that way," or "See how she stops crying when I pick her up," in front of people. The first time Maya called someone mama, she was 10 months old, and it was me. She was in her high chair, oatmeal smeared on her face, looking at me like I was the entire universe. "Mama," she'd gurgled. My heart almost burst. So when, years later, that same little mouth turned toward another woman and gave her my name like it was nothing, it landed on a scar that had been forming since before she was born. It didn't happen all at once. Looking back, there were signs, little shifts in the way James talked, the way Diane talked, the way Maya started using new words about daddy's friend. At the time, I folded those moments up and tucked them away, telling myself I was just tired, just paranoid, just hormonal. I didn't understand yet that there's a difference between being too sensitive and being the only one in the room willing to feel the truth. The first clue came on a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day that feels like wet cardboard, gray, heavy, slow. I was in the kitchen making Maya a snack, cutting apple slices, and laying them out just so, because she refused to eat them if the skin had red parts. She sat at the table, swinging her legs, talking a mile a minute about her day. "Daddy picked me up early," she chirped. "We went to the park, then we went to see Miss Nessa." I frowned. "Miss who, baby?" "Miss Nessa," she repeated like I was slow. "Daddy's friend. She has a big TV and a dog named Cookie. She braided my hair." She touched one of her little plates proudly. "See." The braid was neater than what I'd had time to do that morning. My stomach did an odd little flip. "Where does Miss Nessa live?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "In an apartment with stairs," she said. "We went up, up, up. She has snacks Daddy don't buy. She said I can come over anytime 'cause she loves kids." I felt the knife in my hand, slow on the cutting board. "Did Daddy tell you she's his friend?" I asked. "Or did she?" "Both," Maya said, already tasting the apple unconcerned. When James got home that night, I asked him about it. Casually, I thought. "How was your day?" I said as he kicked off his boots by the door. "Long," he groaned. "Old Mr. Jenkins brought his car in again, acting like I broke it on purpose last time." "Maya said you went to see somebody," I said, watching his face. Miss Nessa." His shoulders tensed for a fraction of a second. "Yeah," he said, too breezy. We stopped by my friend's place. I had to drop off something. Why? Just asking, I said. She said this friend braided her hair. He shrugged. She was there. Maya wanted to play with the dog. Don't start, Angie. It wasn't a big deal. Something about the way he said, "Don't start," made the hairs on my arms stand up. I told myself I was overreacting, that not every female friend was a threat, that if he was going to cheat, he wouldn't be so stupid as to introduce our daughter to the woman. I told myself a lot of things. But that night, when I was putting Maya to bed and she asked, "Can Miss Nessa come to my party?" a tiny knot of dread formed in my chest. I had no idea, yet just how tightly that knot would be pulled. After that first, Miss Nessa, conversation over apple slices, I told myself to calm down. James is allowed to have friends, I thought. Not every woman is a threat. You're tired, you're stretched. Don't turn into one of those bitter wives who sees a mistress behind every tree. But once a seed of doubt is planted, it doesn't take much water for it to sprout. Over the next few weeks, Miss Nessa kept popping up in Maya's mouth like a new favorite cartoon character. "Daddy and me went to see Cookie again," she'd say casually, chewing cereal. "Miss Nessa let me give him treats." Or, "Miss Nessa has beads. She said next time she can do click-clack braids for me." I started keeping mental tallies. James had always been the fun parent: park trips, ice cream runs, spontaneous adventures. I was the schedule, the homework nag, the bedtime enforcer. That balance worked as long as we were both on the same team. Now, it felt like he was auditioning for World's Best Dad in front of someone else. One Saturday, I decided to address it directly. James was at the sink washing dishes, sleeves rolled up, forearms slick with soap and water. Maya was in her room, humming to herself, coloring. I leaned against the counter. "So," I began, trying for light, "who is this famous Miss Nessa I keep hearing about?" His shoulders tensed for a heartbeat, then relaxed. "I told you," he said. "She's a friend." "From where?" I asked. "The shop," he replied. "Her cousin brings his car in. We all know each other." "Oh," I said, "and she braids hair now." He shot me a look. "She was just helping," he said. "Maya's hair was looking crazy from the park. You know I can't do all that." "You could have brought her home," I said, feeling my throat tighten. "I would have done it." He turned off the tap, wiped his hands on a dish towel. "You always tired when I get off," he said. "Always talking about your back and your feet. I was trying to give you a break." "Giving me a break is fine," I said. "Having another woman I haven't met put her hands in my child's hair without telling me, that's not fine." He sucked his teeth. "So now I gotta ask permission for who's in the room when I run errands with my own daughter," he snapped. "Come on, Angie, you doing too much." "I'm asking for respect," I replied quietly. "You don't take a 7-year-old to a grown woman's apartment repeatedly and let her treat it like a second home without including her mother in that conversation. It's basic." He rolled his eyes. "You jealous," he said. "Because somebody else is nice to Maya, that's what this is." That word, jealous, landed on my skin like hot oil. I straightened. "I'm not jealous of any woman who needs my husband to bring her my child so she can feel like she has a family," I said. "I'm protective of boundaries. There's a difference." He shook his head, muttering under his breath, "Here we go." We didn't finish that talk. Maya wandered in, asking for a snack, and we both dropped it like it was too heavy to hold in front of her. But a line had been drawn, even if he pretended not to see it. 2 weeks later, Miss Diane, my mother-in-law, who has never met a pot she couldn't stir, gave me my second clue. We were at her place for Sunday dinner. The tiny apartment smelled like fried fish and cigarette smoke covered up with air freshener. The TV was on low, some reality show nobody was really watching. Maya was sitting on the floor, playing with plastic dolls. James and his cousin were in the other room arguing over a game. I was at the table plucking greens with Diane. "You working too much," she said, glancing at me. "You look worn." "I am tired," I admitted, "but tired don't pay bills." She chuckled. "True enough. That's why I told James he was smart to find somebody like you. even if you got a smart mouth. It was as close to a compliment as she got. She paused, then said, "That little girl of yours sure do love kids." "Maya," I smiled. "Yeah, she does. She'd adopt the whole class if I let her." Diane hummed. "That's why her and Vanessa get along so good." I blinked. "Vanessa." She gave me a careful look. "You know, Miss Nessa." The knife in my hand slowed over the greens. "Oh," I said, "you've met her." She shrugged, too casual. "She came by one time when James picked me up. Seemed like a nice girl. Got a good job, own place. Not like these trifling heifers he used to mess with." Something in my chest went cold. "He brought her here," I asked, "to meet you." Her eyes flicked up to mine, sharp. "Why you asking like that?" she said. "You think I'm dumb. I know when my son is weighing options." My breath caught. Weighing options. She leaned in a little, lowering her voice. "Look, Angela, you a good woman. But you and James been rocky for a while. You always snapping at him, always tired, always saying no to everything. A man needs peace. If he found somebody who brings him a little joy, who are we to judge?" I put the knife down slowly. "We're his asterisk family asterisk," I said, my voice shaking. "That's who. We're the ones who should tell him to fix what's broken at home, not trade it in." She rolled her eyes. "Y'all young girls think marriage means a man gotta die miserable," she muttered. "I told him, don't stay nowhere you not happy just cause of a paper. Life too short." My eyes stung. "So you told him to leave?" I asked. "To what, start over with this woman and my daughter like we're interchangeable?" Diane lifted her chin. "I told him to do what makes him happy," she said. "He gave you a child. He paid bills. He tried. If you couldn't keep him satisfied." I stood up so fast the chair scraped. "If James decides to walk out," I said, voice low and even, "that's between him and God. But I'll be damned if I sit here and let you rewrite me from wife and mother to some woman who couldn't keep him." She opened her mouth, but I was already walking toward the bathroom, blinking fast so I wouldn't cry where she could see. In the mirror, under the too bright bulb, I saw a woman I barely recognized. Lines around my mouth I swore hadn't been there last year, eyes dull with exhaustion and insult. In that moment, I knew two things. One, Diane knew about Nessa. Two, she did not see me as family in any real way. That night, after we got home and Maya was in bed, I asked James directly. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the TV on low, some show neither of us was watching. "How serious is it with her?" I asked. He didn't pretend not to know who I meant. He stared at the screen a long moment, then said, "It's not nothing." The phrase landed like a stone in my stomach. "What does that mean?" I whispered. He rubbed his face. "We've been talking for a while," he said. She listens. I don't feel like I'm failing all the time when I'm with her." My chest ached. "Are you sleeping with her?" I asked, needing the blow, needing the line. He hesitated, just long enough to answer the question. "I ain't got to answer that," he snapped, defensive. My eyes filled, but my voice stayed calm. "You already did." He stood abruptly. "You want honesty? Fine. Yes, I messed up. But I've been messed up in this marriage for years. You just didn't want to see it. We haven't touched each other in months, Angela. Every time I come home, you tired or irritated or gone. You more married to that job and that kid than you ever been to me." "That kid," I repeated, stunned. "That kid is your daughter." He winced, corrected himself. "Our daughter, you know what I mean. Everything is about her. About bills, about schedules. This house don't feel like a home no more, it feel like a checklist." The unfairness of it stole my breath. "You're right," I said quietly. "Things have been off, we've both been stressed, sick parents, money tight. But instead of saying, let's go to counseling, you went and found yourself a soft place to land." "She was just there," he muttered. "We talk at the shop, then after, it happened." "Things don't just happen," I said. "You let them, you watered them." He paced. "So what now?" he demanded. "You want me to cut her off and sit here miserable with you, pretending everything's fine cause of a ring?" I swallowed hard. I want a husband who will fight asterisk for asterisk us, not just for his right to be happy, I said. I want a father who will not hand our daughter to another woman like she's a test drive for a new life. He shook his head. You always gotta make it dramatic, he snapped. We can separate if that's what you want, take a break, figure things out. That's what asterisk want, I echoed. You already took your break, James. You just didn't tell me I was on pause. The silence between us felt thick, suffocating. Within a month, he moved out. He packed his clothes slowly over a few evenings, folding shirts like it was a normal trip. Maya watched, confused. Daddy, where you going? She asked, holding onto one of his sleeves. I'm gonna stay at Grandma's for a little while, he said, kissing her hair. But I'll see you all the time, okay? Daddy loves you. What about Mommy? She asked. He glanced at me, then away. Mommy's gonna have more space, he said. It's grown-up stuff, baby. We didn't do lawyers then. No official custody. Just a messy, verbal agreement. He'd take Maya every other weekend and one afternoon a week. I tried to be civil. I told myself, don't badmouth him in front of her. Don't make her choose. I also laid down one very clear boundary, over the phone one night. I can't control who you date, I said. You've made your choices, but I am asking you, begging you, if I have to, do not have our daughter calling any woman Mom. That's a title she gives. It's not yours to hand out like party favors. He huffed. Ain't nobody asking her to call nobody that, he said. You being extra. You think I'm being paranoid, I said. But I know Diane. I know how she talks. I know how you let things slide when it makes your life easier. Please, James. That's the one line I'm asking you not to cross. All right, he muttered. Relax, we got it. Do you? I asked. He didn't answer. I held on to that shaky, all right, like it was a contract written in ink instead of air. I didn't know then that at someone's kitchen table, Diane was probably saying, if that baby wants to call you Mama, let her. You hear. The other one let my son go. Months limped by. Maya adapted better than I did. Kids are like that. She had 2 houses now, Mommy's place and Daddy's place. We lived in the same apartment. I rearranged the furniture, painted one wall, tried to make it feel like a new chapter. On James' days, he'd pick her up after school. Sometimes he'd drop her off late, smelling like a cologne I didn't recognize. Sometimes she'd come back with braids I hadn't done, beads clacking when she ran. Who did your hair? I asked. Daddy's friend, she'd say. You know, Miss Nessa. Always that name, always light, happy. No sense of the land, mine's under it. I tried to meet Nessa once. I suggested a neutral spot, a park for a handoff. Hopping foolishly that maybe if we looked each other in the eye, we could at least agree on one thing, protecting Maya. James shut it down. She don't want drama, he said. And I don't need my ex and my girl in each other's faces. It's messy. Ex, I asked. We separated, James. We're not divorced. Same difference, he muttered. I let it go for then. I picked my battles carefully, hoarding my energy for the ones that affected my child most. By the time Maya's 7th birthday crept up, I thought I'd built enough scar tissue to handle whatever James brought to the table. We agreed on paper that I'd do a party with my side of the family on Saturday afternoon, and he could take her out Sunday. Just the 3 of them, as he suspiciously phrased it. She wants Chuck E. Cheese, he said. Let me do that for her. I hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but I paused. Remember what I said about titles, please. I heard you, he said, sounding tired. You're not the only one who loves her, Angie. That Sunday morning, I braided Maya's hair fresh, tied her unicorn crown on straight, and kissed her cheeks. I'm gonna be there when you blow your candles tomorrow, I told her. You know that, right? She nodded, unconcerned. Can Daddy's friend come too? She asked. She likes pizza. I swallowed my answer. We'll see, I said. If she comes, I'll be there too. And that's how I ended up in that parking lot behind Chuck E. Cheese. Invited, but not really expected. Standing a few feet away when my daughter rushed right past me, arms open, shouting, Mom. at a woman whose name I had only ever heard through my child's mouth. And my husband, the man I once promised to build a home and a future with, watched it happen like it was the most natural thing in the world. Would you like me to continue to the next part, where I describe that birthday scene in full, the confrontation that followed, and how I started to rebuild my life and my role as Maya's mother after that?